we drove around and we relocated the River Pride, or at least 3 individuals of the River Pride, down in the Sharalume. They caused a bit of chaos and panic. There was giraffe running all over the place. 1 or 2 young elephant bulls also caught the memo that lions are after the ungulates, and everybody was running. So no success, no joy. It shows you that the hunting success rate of lions in the wild is quite low. 30 to 40% of the time they actually succeed on making a kill, closer to 30%. So they have to keep on trying and trying before they get some luck. So the sub-adults on the left-hand side of the frame, they're pretty much in that stage of their life where they'll watch from a distance as the lionesses operate. So this could have been a school of hunt this morning. So a training session. They're over 14 months already. They're aging closer to 16, 17 months. They're coming into the time of their life where they're almost independently going to start to hunt and try and subdue prey. And the lioness on the right hand side, very experienced. Now it was her that actually chased after all of these giraffe this morning. We just missed it, but nevertheless it's great to catch up with the River Pride. We haven't seen them in weeks, especially the lone limping Naru male that was with them. Apparently he is still up in the north, far north, northern traverse. These youngsters are getting nice and big now. I just want to do a head count if everybody is here. The last time they were 8 without the male. 3 lionesses with their 5 youngsters, but one of those youngsters, the young princess, she's already approaching her adult phase. So I just want to see if she wasn't with the lionesses that actually pursued the giraffe earlier on. But a perfect spot once again in the riverbed of the mighty Sharalume River. There you hear it, folks. The other lionesses are approaching. They did not succeed with their hunt, so before it gets too warm they'll probably just come and sleep here in the shade for the rest of business. Another one of the young males, keeping a close eye on the adults earlier on to watch how they hunt and what they do. We actually saw one of the lionesses veering off, sort of circling to let the giraffe go into a panic, and some of the lionesses waited, but to no avail. Remember, when they do hunt giraffe, it comes at a major risk because that animal can pack a powerful kick and can hurt a lion big time, blind a lion, break jaws, teeth, etc. So you've got to be very careful. Yeah, slight orangey, light brown, amber kind of color eyes. Oh man, it is so good to see these lions again.
You haven't seen them in like a week and a half?
Yeah, I haven't seen these guys in a while. I'll probably say I haven't seen them in 3 or 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So always good, especially if you've known the cubs from, when their eyes just opened up from birth. And that's what happened in the case of these youngsters. Just to put the story for you guys together, they did have 3 males called the Naru males that looked after the pride, but unfortunately their reign ended recently, so these guys don't have any male lions looking after them at the moment. So another lioness ready to join the mix, guys.
Okay, so the one that's the second.
So the 4 lions you see here, before the one entering from the ravine, these guys are some of the cubs that was born in 2020, end of 2020 towards the beginning stages of 2021.
And the one that's furthest away is male.
It looks like a male, the one furthest away, yeah. I thought it was the young princess earlier on, but it's not the case. That guy over there. Saw a little bit of mane building up towards the upper chest there. I'm thinking it's one of the young males. After all, they do show signs of that mane developing after the first 14 months, yeah, after a year to a year and 2 months.
And so are these other 3 female cubs?
I think 3 of them is males and 2 of them is females. So yes, 3 of them might end up being a coalition later on.
This one closest to us is female.
Yeah, it certainly looks the case with the 2 brothers right behind her. The one sniffing the air over here is a young lioness, and that's her 2 brothers at the back. Yeah, she's scenting the air.
And are they all of the same mom? Or they're just of the same...
No, different mothers. They synchronize their estrus conditions so that they mate with the males more or less at the same time. Remember, lions try and raise the cubs together. It's called allo mothering. Adds to the overall success of the pride if they can raise them maybe together.
Okay.
They also do allo suckle or allo suckling, where each other's cubs may suckle from different lionesses. Future kings, the young river pride males. So hopefully if these 3 boys there at the back can survive, they'll probably film quite a serious trilogy one day. Just like their fathers, the Naru males. What a beautiful sight. One of the young lionesses walking past them. Aiming back towards the ravine and the thick grass over there. So they'll either sleep a bit now, but when the sun approaches lunchtime, these guys will probably be in the thickets to avoid all of that solar radiation. Zooming out to a leading lioness, second from the right, with the young princess looking mighty strong and in excellent shape here on the right. I mean, she's also approaching her 2nd year now, so she'll definitely be actively hunting with the adult lionesses. A very important phase for her. And she'll obviously stick around with the lionesses, with her moms and her aunties. So I remember the days when she was isolated, a lone survivor of the early months of the year 220, when the river pride sadly lost a litter of their cubs, and the young princess was the only lone survivor. And she spent countless hours with only adult lions, no siblings to play with, and eventually, months later, after an agonizing wait, new cubs reappeared and she had someone to play with. But she was much bigger than them, so the lionesses kept a close eye.
How old does she need to be before she starts coming in estrus?
Yeah, it's typically between 2 or 3 years. But she might have only her first cubs at about 3.5 to 4 years old. The first while, their fertility rate is very, very low. They get more fertile as they age. With a young lioness, it takes a lot of time. So we've seen out of the past that typically around 3.5 to 4 years that they actually conceive for the first time. and have their first litter. So she's just over 2 years old. So it won't be too long until probably these lionesses would find new males. If that had to happen, then the young river pride males will probably be in a good time to move on by themselves. So it will still be a couple of months to possibly a year before that happens, if it's not a forced pride takeover that happens.
So this one on the right, how old is she?
Yo, this lioness, she's quite an experienced lioness, but let's look at her, let's zoom in and look at her ear panay. It's a good question from Tracy here at the back, all the way from Washington DC, joining us on a safari in the Timbavati Game Reserve. You can see that the ear panay is quite neat, or the outskirts of her ear, but she is one of the mothers of the group, so she's probably a good 5.5 to 6 years old by the looks of those ear panay. Once they get more than 6-7 years old, you'll start to see the ear panay having more cuts, wear and tear, more cuts on the face, etc.
And so what's Panay exactly?
The panay of the ear is the outskirts or the disc of the ear.
Okay.
That roundness up there,
Yeah.
that's the panay of the ear. So any sound wave hits that disc and then it goes straight into the ear opening. So sometimes you'll see with lions, sometimes the ear panay is very worn out, a lot of wear and tear because of fighting, competition on carcasses, etc.
And so these males are not going to mate with these females?
Inbreeding has been documented, but in this case, typically when they reach about 2.5 to 3 years old, they're not in frame at the moment, but when the males of this pride, the young males, reaches about 2.5 to 3 years old, they typically become nomadic males. And when they become nomads, the young females will be joining the lionesses, which they grew up with, and then typically they'll be taken over by new males.
From another group.
From another coalition, yes.
And this coalition will go find another group of females.
Yes, to spread genetic diversity.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, inbreeding can take place. Sometimes inbreeding into the 4th generation of lions does take place, but it's not healthy for the gene pool. It can cause a little bit of a bottleneck. So the lone surviving young princess is getting quite large now. And like I've mentioned earlier on, she'll definitely be actively learning to hunt with the adult lionesses. Seeking out some more shade. It's warming up. And as the shade runs out in the Sharalume River, these lions will disappear into the thickets for the day. It's on the edge of this ravine in the mighty Sharalume River. This is almost about our time to leave these big cats.
Whisker markings, or was that another? Were we talking about leopard?
Yeah, 100%. Good question. Yeah, so look at the whisker lines beneath the nostrils of the lioness. You see those whisker lines moving from side to side there. They've all got unique patterns.
Like the series of dots.
That's it, the series of dots. That's correct. So with leopards, they've also got a series of dots, but you know, the rosettes and the single dots on the face and the forehead, and also running down past the snout, there's a digit of codes there. So it's easy to dissect the codes on leopard's face, but because there's not much dots or spots on a lion's face, it can be tricky sometimes. So you'll look for external features like a cut in the ear or old wounds on the face that's healed, and if need be, if you can't see that, then typically the whisker lines, and the older cats, the whisker lines do get faded quite a bit, so it gets tricky.
They get faded with time.
Yeah, they do get faded with time, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes because of all the fights and all the wear and tear on the front of the snout or the face of the animal, it's difficult to sometimes make out the entire line. So if you had to compare it with previous images, sometimes it's quite messy in that area and difficult to establish. So then you start looking at the territory, what area you found them in, compare that to previous sightings of lions in the same area. It will give you more or less an idea. And obviously the social structure, how many lions do you see? Also the size, sometimes you can see the mere size difference of lionesses. Like I instill in my humble opinion that the Mayan Bula lionesses are slightly larger than the River Pride lionesses. These ladies are slightly more slenderly built, and their heads as well. If you look at their snouts and their heads, it's also slightly more slenderly built. So it's about our time to leave the River Pride. It was so fantastic catching up with these guys. Again, like I said earlier on, I haven't seen them in a while. So from the heart of the Timbavati Game Reserve, this is Christof Schoeman. You're watching Heartbeat of the Timbavati. I'll be sure to catch you soon, and next time keep safe and cheers for now.